Okay, hello and welcome. My name is Yifan Chen. I'm the co-coordinator for Film Lab's Unfinished Works program. The Film Lab is a nonprofit organization that has been working to create racial and gender parity in entertainment since 1998. Unfinished Works is a program where we workshop diverse and cutting-edge new scripts and writers. Thank you everyone for viewing the table read.
Now we invite you to be a part of the creative process and help us workshop these scripts. While everyone is speaking, please go ahead and mute yourself unless you're called on by either myself or Ginger. Also, if you'd like to ask a question, you can use the button to virtually raise your hand, or you can also use the clap virtual thing. If you agree something, try not to use the chat box unless it's an emergency. And then if you want to use the chat box, you can always message myself or Ginger directly. So yeah, let's get started.
So we are focusing on works in conversation. So we have two writers this time. We have Daniel S. Park, who's the writer of One Last Sale, and Ryan Yep, who's the co-writer of Fast Break with his writing partner, Terry Chung. So Daniel, we want to start by having you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your work, and then we'll pass along introductions to Ryan.
Sure. So at the moment, I'm a playwright, screenwriter based in New York. As I mentioned in the interview before, this is sort of like my second take on a full feature screenplay. It's in the action sci-fi genre. So yeah, I just brought it to the film lab just to see feedback on it. I've been working on it for a while, sort of like the third rewrite, just about. And yeah, just happy to hear the feedback on it. If there's any critiques, etc.
Okay, and then let's go to Ryan.
Yeah, so background. Yeah, I'm a little older, so I started out kind of a typical Chinese American. I started out in college. I loved creative writing, but I actually then had I started having thoughts about, can I do anything with this? So I actually majored in biology and followed that for a lot of my career. And so then but always interested in filmmaking, taking classes later on. And I've had this script for actually many, many years. Terry and I wrote this, and Terry wrote actually a lot of, I would say most of the dialogue. And then we kind of worked on the drafts together based on my concepts. This story, this script is based on or inspired by a real basketball team that my father and uncle were on in just before World War II. So that's the basis of the story. And then there's a lot of themes. And I think, these scenes that I pasted together for this reading it can be a little confusing because it's not, linear. I mean, there was a lot of scenes between those scenes that we table read tonight. So happy to answer questions. I'm trying to work through an update of the script and in the context of, the racist kind of awareness that we have, trying to bring to light, Asian, the racism against the Asian basketball players when they barnstormed around the country, and also the actual, there's a lot of different themes, there's a lot of different themes. I can discuss that more as we get into it if you want. But just suffice it to say, I want to kind of put this all in context in terms of, what I do with the script here forward.
Great. I would love to hear what the two of you think of each other's scripts and what, feedback you have, what you like, what you saw that was similar to what you were writing.
Well, before we go there, can we just get we talked a little bit about the larger script as a whole. These are parts of larger pieces. If you could go ahead and give us a little bit of a synopsis. Daniel will go to you first, and then
yes, that will make things clearer.
Oh yeah, definitely. Also, we're having a little bit of difficulty hearing you. If you can go ahead and do us a favor and get a little closer to your mic, that would be fantastic.
Sound better?
A little. Yeah.
I think it might be a mic adjustment that's technical. Oh boy, here we go.
You might have to go into your
settings a bit more for now, and then once you have time, try to make your mic input a bit more. There we go.
Is this better?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
to give the full synopsis like the way I sent it to the lab, like the entire film?
Yeah, you don't have to give us the entire synopsis, but just a condensed version.
Okay, sure. So obviously those 15 pages, it's the first act, more or less, of that film, establishes the protagonist, Corey. So the log line is a young warehouse worker that wants to make a better life for his kid. And the trigger, the catalyst, the inciting incident is when he realizes the mortgage for his house has, for whatever reason, tripled. So that's like his main objective. He wants to save his house. Decides to go to his main employer, Elroy, cash out his savings. However, Han, the main antagonist of this film, is taking over this warehouse, and you realize, now his job's even at stake here, so the pressure builds a little bit. Cutting into the second act, he makes all these deliveries with his coworker Xavier, who has just as much anxiety about potentially losing his job. And then, through an unfortunate incident, he gets put into the situation where he has to do one last drug sale. So you sort of get his background on it, and also hence the name of the title. And then cutting into the second act, yeah, it's pretty much the plan on how they're going to pull this off. They realize the drugs are actually inside the warehouse. There's a few twists and turns. The true antagonist is revealed. They get it's like a surreal, sort of fantastical scene where they get the drugs in the secret floor. They extract it. They try to get it back to this main banker who's supposed to purchase the drugs, hence Corey trying to save his house. Everything goes wrong. Cutting into the third act, or more or less the climax of the film, you realize not everything is as it seems. Han reveals himself as like a robot. So it goes into like this crazy sci-fi genre. Oh man. The final transaction, the actual sale itself, is when Corey tries to get the money for these drugs. Once again, everything goes wrong. But somehow Gina, who's the Cinderella character, pulls off getting the money from another sale. Time jumps 50 years from now. You realize Jackie's grown up and Corey's now in prison, sending a life sentence.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Crazy film. We saw the beginning in the table read.
Oh man.
Ryan, let's go to you.
Okay. Yeah, so as I mentioned, this film is inspired by a real basketball team that barnstormed around the country. Right before World War II, they played a lot of, you'd go around and try to make money by challenging the local teams in these like rural communities and cities. But also they played the Harlem Globetrotters at that time. At that time, the NBA was white only, Caucasians only. So, they would have Boston. So anyway, you had to make money by barnstorming and playing other teams in these different cities. So they played these different teams. So the script follows the team, and they weren't allowed to, the actual team and the team in the script, they weren't allowed to speak English. The whole novelty was they were shorter than the other teams, but they were quick, fast, and they spoke no English. And so, that's the basis of the main script. So, and then there are subplots and different themes. There's a Romeo and Juliet kind of relationship between a Chinese, one of the Chinese team members, and a Japanese woman. And then there's a class conflict between the relatively more well-off lawyer's family, which Frankie is the son of that father, and then the father's brother, who is more working class peasant, and the interaction of those class struggles and the prejudice that is exhibited by the rich father. And so those are the major themes of the script. I'm happy to answer any other questions about it.
Great. I think now's the time to open it up to the writers to be in conversation about your works and what you thought of each other's table reads.
Yeah, so you know, as I mentioned to Daniel when he gave me the scenes that scene that he was going to workshop, I told him, "This is so interesting. I want to know more." You know, that's what the whole you know, that introduction, that opening, those opening scenes made you want to know more about what was going to happen to those characters, and especially the protagonist. And so, you know, I wish we could have workshopped or read more of it, because I wanted to know, you know, what goes on after, you know, after this package is received. And you know, I thought that the dialogue was, to me, it sounded very authentic and gritty and real. That's what I really liked about it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, as you explained it, Daniel, how it goes from there on, the plot and everything, it sounds really, really interesting. And I just would have loved to heard more of that, more of it, you know, even excerpts to see, you know, what would happen.
Great. Yeah, I mean, that was the initial intention, was to have the whole script read, but obviously with this new format, bring you on as a second writer, those were the factors. Yeah, would love to read the whole thing, entirety, you know, preferably live, but I'm sure that would tell in the future. Yeah, yeah. As for your work, it's funny because you are making it clear that it's excerpts, cuts and pasted scenes, and everything. I do find it interesting though that the log line is showing it straight as a sports drama, sports genre. Just because you also mentioned the whole Romeo and Juliet theme, and that's all I got from the excerpts and those scenes. So, as I mentioned before, if Frankie is the protagonist of the story, and if it's not like the usual coach of the team, maybe somehow figure out a way to join those two genres more consistently. So if Frankie's main motivation, as you wrote in your log line, is to make, you know, to play with dignity and honor in a tall man's game, if that is his main objective, then make that like a priority, is my opinion. Because then I think the scenes that you presented, it's like this historical romantic drama, it would sort of go more into that sports genre that you initially intended, if Frankie's mind is on specifically the game of basketball. Yeah, in my opinion, you can tell this was a sports movie. Like, it felt like a Romeo and Juliet, star-crossed lovers, Chinese versus Japanese, you know, race issues. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment that I think is, yeah, thanks for those comments. So yeah, I picked these scenes because they had the most dialogue between the young Asian couples, and so it gives you a false impression about what the script is about, really, if you don't know that, and I'm sorry about that. So yeah, you know, 80% of the script I would say is about the basketball team, and I chose like 20% to workshop here, because those scenes are, you know, it's very uncomfortable to read the J word and those derogatory comments that were made by the father, let's say, and Benny, and so I'm trying to revise the script, update it, and bring it, you know, we want to bring this prejudice to light, but I don't want to go over the top. I mean, it was difficult to hear the words being said, painful. And I want to, you know, bring the prejudice to light without, I mean, and find a balance between going over the top and with all those triggering words. So, you know, I'm in the process of getting input from the community, different communities, Japanese community, and all of that, to see, you know, how you know, what the effects are, and because it's going to hopefully reach a broader audience, and so, you know, I want to make sure that that's you know, it all works out well. So, but again, just to your comments, yeah, I'm sorry, you know, it gives a really and the log line doesn't give the correct, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, doesn't give the right impression about what the workshop was, what I workshopped. And so that might have, thrown people off and surprised people what they actually heard.
Well, on the topic of community, I think that is a lovely segue into opening it up to the audience. Thank you both for your comments to each other. Thank you for providing these lovely scripts to talk about and workshop. But we do want to turn it over to you all at home, or you all over the Zoom, I should say, to get some of your thoughts and your feedback. So we'll just go ahead and open the floor. As we mentioned, oh yeah, we already have a hand up. Let's go to Jen. Hi, Jen.
Oh, so excited. Thank you. I just have a compliment and I have a question for Daniel Park, the author of One Last Sale. The compliment is that in reading and then in participating in and observing the excerpt, I thought that the writing was really pleasurable, because to me it came across like a painting, like there were layer upon layer upon layer, a very subtle nuance that created this very ominous, very dark feeling of building anxiety throughout, with very small, subtle things, from my character, the wife's glance, just a glance at the knives, and then all the foreclosures, and then the juxtaposition of the chippy holiday song against the really grim warehouse. And I just thought that was a really lovely build. So I wanted to compliment you on that. And my question was actually, when I read that excerpt, the scene where the character played by George's creates the distraction for Eugene's character to get to the elevator. When I read this script, it seemed very scary and suspenseful. But then the actor made some choices in there that I thought were actually very fun, that brought what I thought was some levity to the situation, a little bit of almost comic relief. And so I was curious whether that was actually intended by you in the script, and if it wasn't, if it was something that you would consider incorporating.
I mean, George's reading of it, yeah, it wasn't initially what I intended. It's a very anxiety-ridden character, so just day to day, just doesn't know what the outcome of the situation is going to be. But yeah, the way George's read it, I thought it was very interesting. It's, yeah, it did bring a comic relief to it. Yeah, it definitely gave another perspective for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think, oh, sorry to cut you off, Daniel, but I think that was a lovely comment, especially about the writing as a painting, because when you are creating these worlds and when you do have the sci-fi elements that you were talking about earlier, it's good to have an idea of where you're going so you can give your audience some indication of where we're going as far as the story goes. So having those small elements of looking at the knives, having the kind of ominous feeling in the workshop, are really good things to kind of push along your story. Ginger, go ahead.
Yeah, and to consider, we are always in collaboration as screenwriters. So how the actors take it, how the directors take it, eventually it does slip out of our control. So that's something to think about as we continue on our paths.
To me, even the moment where David did a lovely job with the kind of manager character, and there were some things that he read that I had a little chuckle to myself while he was reading. There were just, and it's good to have that, especially in a gritty drama or even a gritty sci-fi drama. You need a little bit of levity to come in there, because otherwise it's going to be like just heart-wrenching, like 2 hours where you're just like, gravity is just a long, you don't breathe in gravity.
Yeah, torture.
Let's go ahead, and does anyone else have anything they'd like to say? I saw Austin make a comment in the chat.
We have a lot of actors here.
Yeah, we have, I think, most of the actors here, which is fantastic.
No.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and let's talk about character wants versus character needs for a second. I think one of the things that Ryan, that you talked about that was so amazing. Also, I do want to point out, you put in the chat, but I'd like you to talk, we'll talk about it for a second, but the photo that you have in your backdrop. Can you talk a little bit about that for a second?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So that's, you can't really see it, I guess. That's the real team that barnstormed around the country, and the man standing with the suit is the manager of the team that was hired by an accountant that was that funded the team in San Francisco Chinatown and had an audition for team members, Chinese American team members, and this manager eventually, led the team. They all went in one car, all packed into one car, and the manager eventually embezzled the money that was paid for by the audience members and the tickets. He took off with the money. That's the real story. But anyway, so my father is kneeling over this shoulder. That's my father there. And then my uncle is somewhere, I think, yeah, he's kind of kneeling over there. Anyway, so that's a picture, and none of the center was like 5'10", so that was considered tall in Chinatown. So that's the picture.
Well, that's awesome. I think it's incredible that you're taking kind of something that's true to life, which gives us a lot as far as content is concerned. When writing, you have at least a real place to pull from. I think that helps me personally when I write. I try to pull from characters that are based off of people that I know or situations that I'm familiar with that are personal to me, and that adds, I find, a level of realism to what I'm trying to get across. So we talked a little bit about the emotional core behind your script, Ryan, and also behind your script, Daniel, these moments of financial tension, these moments of romantic tension. And I just wanted to turn it over to the audience to see what we thought about, if these characters were felt, first of all, authentic, but also that you knew what their wants were, you knew what their needs were, and so on and so forth. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say or add?
Especially if you play those characters, we would love to have you.
Oh yeah, actors, please.
Yeah,
Amazon, jump in, pull up a chair or a virtual chair.
Okay. No raised hands so far, no problem. Oh, Eugene, no?
No, I just turned on the video. No, I thought the motivations were clear. Daniel, I'm sorry if, I thought that was very interesting in that, yes, there's a lot of anxiety that's in the situation, but for some reason I saw Corey as sort of like an oasis of calm for at least a little while. He's holding hands for his wife, for his kid. Even with George, he's just kind of like, yeah, this is crazy, but I'll roll with it, like he until he cracks. And obviously I would have been great to read a longer version to see what that journey of cracking. But to me, it was a guy who was trying to hold on, and trying to make sanity out of what is increasingly becoming a more agitated situation. And, that moment when he cracks for me was later on. And so I kind of try to make that choice. But yeah, for me, I was tracking what was happening to him and what his tactics were in each sort of scene, like little bit by little bit. He's already got this mortgage thing going on, but now he's got to do a favor, and then on top of it is Han giving another shit. It's just piling on. And so for me, the character was clear. Yeah.
Cool, great. Yeah, Oasis of calm for sure. I mean, that's like the whole intention I was trying to get with. Like, he's trying to stay composed, but everything else is falling apart.
Yeah. And so that even as the situation gets crazier, right? Like, even when he makes his move, right? Like, I think one of the most telling scenes is that small scene where he, like, drives on by, right? The cop, right? He's like, you think he's gonna be like, yes, officer, and then he just does it. He doesn't even justify it. He doesn't even signal it, He just acts in that situation, which is a great, probably foreshadowing for what he's gonna do later. But for me, that guy was a guy who, like, doesn't give it away, He doesn't give away what he's gonna do. He just does it, It's very, so yeah. Great work, yeah.
Well, thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. There is a sense of calmness about the characters when they first start out, and you do have this storyline that kind of starts to get increasingly more wonky as you keep going. That being said, I do think that there is a way that we can put in some more drama and some more tension to start alluding to that. So one of the differences in your script, Daniel, and your script, Ryan, is we have the first 10 pages of your script, Daniel. We have the opening act, essentially. And with Ryan, we have kind of a conglomeration of what starts to develop beyond these characters throughout the script, or especially this couple throughout the script. And so there's a difference between what we first see when we first meet the couple, and then when we when we first meet Frankie and Jenny, right? Jenny's
Keiko.
Keiko, thank you. Yeah. When we first meet Frankie and Keiko versus when we last see them coming together to kind of face the father figure, there is a transformation that kind of goes on. We get to have that resolution. But for you, Daniel, unfortunately, that opening, we don't necessarily get to see that. But the interesting thing that we do get to see is the beginning of that journey of unraveling and what happens to this character as we keep moving through this script. That being said, just something for both of you to think about. What are some ways that we can start to incorporate those things in the very beginning? How can we make this the moment? Why is this the day that everything is different from the days to follow? If you take screenwriting class, it's one of the things that they drill into you. But why are we starting the script at this moment, at this time in the characters' lives? Why is this the moment that this character is starting to unravel and crack? We'd like to move to...
Jen had her hand up. So Jen has a comment.
Oh yeah, let's go to Jen. Jen, you're muted.
Right, yeah. I was just going back to characters. There was, sorry, I got distracted with the chat. There wasn't a lot of female character work going on in the first script, but I really did appreciate how Ginger was very interesting. She had this kind of backstory about, being involved in a crime syndicate, I think, and just looking at the knives and folding up the paper and putting it in her pocket and trying to think of all these things. You could see the character is already thinking about actions, about what to do. And as a female, and particularly as a female of color, that's really refreshing to see, because so often when we see female characters, they're what I call the 3 S's. They're either silent, subservient, sobbing, or super stunningly sexy, which is annoying, but I want to move this on to other people because I know we're low on time.
We do have a question from Jeff in the chat on Ryan's play. He understands the desire to bring knowledge of these events and racism to today's audience and times, but how do you balance that with some of the overbearing father themes that came through in the reading? Like, it is great to show the bad, but in doing so, we're pulling some of that bad stereotype into the story. Ryan, how would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I think that's a great and interesting comment. So I think and if you, Jeff, if you want to, comment, clarify what I'm saying, if I'm saying it correctly, is that the father figure has obviously these racial stereotypes and malice against Japanese. And so the way that Terry and I chose to balance that out was to have the love story between, and the resolute and love story between Frankie and Keiko against that. Now, there is a possibility that we could have the father have a change of heart once he realizes that Keiko and Frankie are not, he can't force them apart, and so that he can accept Keiko and have that kind of resolution come about. And I could definitely explore that. So I appreciate that comment. And if that's not what you meant, then yeah, that's what I'd like to hear, if that wasn't what you meant about that with your comment there. But that's what I really want. I really want to know, is it over the top to bring up all these bad stereotypes to a larger audience who doesn't know the history of Chinese Americans or Chinese and Japanese and all these things, but just see those stereotypes? Yeah, that's really, I want input from everyone about that.
I think it would depend on the script as a larger whole, because you can skim sort of the surface of a stereotype, or you can take some time to really dive deep into the character, because there's motivations to why people act the way they do, and there's reasons why stereotypes form. So I think it depends on if you were to make sure that, we have an arc for the father over the whole film to show sort of the depths of what he's thinking, how he's operating. I think it would work to explain why people think that, Chinese mothers and fathers are like this. So we only have a few moments left. I just want to close with one more topic, really quick.
John has a comment also
Quick
as well.
comments. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's all right. If it's gonna take too much time, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Let's just read it out loud. I think the father character was a painful but honest portrayal. The idea of an Asian monolith is what many audiences have been exposed to, but there's a lot of complexity in the history of Asian America.
And I second that. I agree with that.
Woo, come on now. One of the things that I always say, especially when watching TV content with Black characters, is Black people are not a monolith. We are not the same. We're not going to get this. I am a very different Black person than George's and Gregory. We are not one you're not going to find the same person portraying the same character in the same way. And I think one of the things that we're talking about is whether a character is being stereotypical, because sometimes we as people, we can be a little stereotypical. Even my grandfather is an older Black man from the South. There are some times where he says something and I'm like, oh no. But then there's a difference between that and making your character a stereotype. And that's what we want to avoid. But sorry, Ginger.
Yeah, I think we don't have enough time to open up to the writers, but I wanted to make a comment about the connection I saw between the two works, which is capitalism and how it sort of grips our characters. For Ryan, these players are working for money. They're working. This is their job. They're trying to survive off of this team. And of course, the manager is, has his hands in everything. And for Daniels, everything revolves around this financial need and how that affects him and his family and what he does for survival. So that's sort of, why we have these works in comparison to see how even, a historical script and something that's a bit more futuristic can come together and share themes and identities. So Keeland, why don't you close out with our final comments that we have prepared?
Okay, yeah. First of all, I'd just like to thank everyone for being here. Thank you to Ryan once again for contributing your script and your time. We really appreciate you. And thank you to Daniel as well. Thank you for contributing your time. Thank you for putting in all the hard work. I think what happens after this, we're all curious to know. We all are incredibly curious to know. So if you have anything that you want to reach out to Ginger and myself about, feel free to. The Film Lab is always open to you. We have an open door. You can always reach out at any time. I would like for just a second, does anyone have anything, final thoughts that they want to get in before we officially close it out and kind of, do the whole, if you have your comments, blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, Ryan, thank you for putting in your email. If you'd like to send Ryan a direct message, if you're watching from home, do you mind if I read out your email address, Ryan? Is that okay?
Go ahead. Please do.
Okay, Ryan, if you'd like to message him, if you're watching at home, his email address is REYIP, that's RE-YIP, at bambooproductions.com. Also, you can message us at the Film Lab by emailing unfinished works, that's UNFINISHEDWORKS at film-lab.org. If you email it to us, we'll also make sure that your comments get to Ryan and Daniel respectively. But no last thoughts, no last comments before we close it out. Gregory, do you have something to add?
I just wanted to say, well, one, thank you everyone for the invitation. I wanted to pay a compliment to the actors and to the screenwriters. Thank you very much. I enjoyed this evening.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Yes, you all did a fantastic job. The actors all did a fantastic job. I'd also like to mention once again, these are actors from the Film Lab's actor directory. They have volunteered so graciously their time and their talent to these amazing scripts. Yes, turn your cameras on. Come on in. We have
better at plugging than I am.
We have Jen here as well. Austin Q, I believe I saw. We had some thoughts from Eugene. Yes.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, everyone. Now we turn our cameras on.
Now we show up.
How's it going,
Good
Austin?
job.
Oh my goodness.
Right. Have a lovely evening, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. And
Yeah, this was
we'll have
so
a
much
video put up.
fun.
We have this recorded. We'll put it up, and feel free to keep in contact with us.
Yeah. Thanks to all the actors. Really great.
We did have an excellent cast this time around. It was exceptional, really. So good job, everyone.
Absolutely fantastic.
All right.
Alrighty.
Let's call it a night. Yeah.
We'll see. Oh, I do want to mention before we leave, we have our next workshop in February as well.
February 19th, same time.
Yes, same time, same bat channel. We will have Melissa Kong, I believe, and Tarun Shetty. Their scripts will be read. There are 2 scripts that we have for that final one as well. So please join us for that. That is February 19th. Mark it in your calendar. Follow us on the Film Lab for updates. And I think that's all.
At ASAM Film Lab.
Yeah.
Twitter, etc. All right.
Bye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your
Bye,
evening.
folks.